Hola, hoy vamos a hablar sobre acciones recíprocas. In English, it would be each other. To reciprocate to something is respond to a gesture or action by making a corresponding one. So that's that each other. So the idea is that I'm acting and then you are responding with a like action. So we get two people doing the same thing. That's going to be really key, is that there are two people involved in this. So keep that in mind moving forward. Before we actually get into the reciprocal actions, I want a real quick review of the reflexives. So remember, we used our reflexive verbs when the same person was both the subject and the object. In English, it's myself, yourself, herself, ourselves, themselves. In Spanish, remember you had a reflexive verb like levantarse. You have the se here, which would turn into the reflexive pronoun me, levanto, te levantas, usted se levanta, él or ella se levanta. Nosotros nos levantamos, ustedes se levantan, and ellos or ellas se levantan. So when we did our reflexive, we took the se, we turned it into a me if the subject were me, and then we conjugate a verb for that, levanto. So those are our reflexive pronouns. Our reciprocal actions are going to look a lot like that, but be a little bit different. Now remember that I told you that the reciprocal had to have two people, right? That it was a mutual corresponding action. So I'm doing something, you're doing something also. So that means if we have two people, remember this column over on the right-hand side is the plural column. So that means that whenever you have a reciprocal action, not a reflexive action, but a reciprocal action, I started to write reflexive, reciprocal, it has to be plural. So we're going to use these pronouns on the right-hand side, nos, se, or se. So as I said before, we're pulling from the reflexive pronoun set. So we have a nos, a se, and a se. And we're going to use those in order to, instead of saying ourselves, say each other. Okay, so here's our formula right here. It's going to be, oh, I need a pen. Formula. So you're going to have, if you want to, you can use the subject pronoun. It's optional. And then you're going to pull one of our three pronouns here. So it's going to end up being nos or se. Verb conjugated. In any tense, this can happen in multiple tenses for the subject. Okay. Let's look at an example of this. So let's take, for example, the verb abrazar, to hug. Sometimes you'll see it as abrazarse also because there are generally two people involved in this, and it generally is a reciprocal action. And we want to say we hug each other. So I'm hugging you and you're hugging me. You're reciprocating the hug. We don't want to say we hug ourselves. It just doesn't make sense. And when we make this sentence, people are just going to know it's each other by the context of this verb and the action. So we're going to start out, we can say nosotros or not, it doesn't matter. And then we're going to choose the correct pronoun for nosotros and nosotras. It's going to be nos. And then we're going to conjugate the verb abrazar for nosotros, and we have abrazamos. Another example of this might be the verb amarse, to love each other. And that, let's say we're talking about people now. And we're going to say ellos. The pronoun I would choose for ellos is going to be se. And then I'm going to conjugate amar for ellos, aman. And this again would translate into they love each other as opposed to they love themselves. Some context clues are going to be obvious, the situation surrounding it, how you're talking about these people, what their background is. There are a couple of phrases that you can use if you want to make it super clear that it's each other as opposed to themselves. There are some vocab phrases that you can add on. One of those is mutualmente, mutually. Another phrase might be uno al otro, one to the other. And the last one you can add in there is reciprocamente. So these phrases are going to go extra far to just really reinforce that this is reciprocal, that we're talking about each other as opposed to ourselves that would use these same pronouns and the same conjugations on the verbs. Common sense, I think, also goes pretty far in these situations. But if you want to be extra careful, you can add one of these on, but it's not necessary. Aquí tienen una lista de unos verbos que frecuentemente usan esta estructura recíproca. Abrazarse, to hug each other. Conocerse, that one's to meet someone for the first time. Remember, conocer means to know, but conocer as an event means to meet you. Like, hello, my name is, buenos días. Besarse, to kiss each other. That's obvious why that one's reciprocal. Despedirse, to say goodbye to someone. Pelearse, to fight with someone. Ooh, that one got on there twice. Divorciarse, to divorce each other. Odiarse, to hate each other. Darse la mano, to shake hands with each other. Pelearse, well, again. Reunirse, this is also to meet with people, but this is like I'll meet you at 3 o'clock and we'll have a discussion about the topic. That's that kind of a meeting. Casarse is to get married. So I'm marrying you, you're marrying me. We're not marrying ourselves, we're marrying each other. And just a side note, in Spanish, in English you get married to someone, and in Spanish, I think it's lovely, you get married with someone. So if you're gonna say someone's name after this, you need to use the word con and not to or a. Estrellarse and chocarse, these also both take con. But these mean to like crash into something. Estrellarse, if you picture all those little kind of stars, you know, when you run into something in the comic books, like put the little stars everywhere. So it's that same idea. Turnarse, to take turns with each other. Amarse, to love each other. And saludarse, to greet each other. In resumen, we have what really is the same thing in Spanish. We have a reciprocal and a reflexive structure. They both use the same pronouns. They both have a verb that's conjugated for the subject, who ends up being the same as the object. So in Spanish, it's pretty much the same. I think a big difference is that the reciprocal has to be two people. So it's only going to be a subject of nosotros, nosotras, ustedes, ellos, or ellas, right? So it has to be one of these subjects. Whereas, for example, with a reflexive, you could say, yo me divierto. So the reflexive does have yo forms, the singular side, tú, él, or ella, whereas the reciprocal has only these plural options. And then the other big change really, honestly, I think it's thinking about this more to do with English than Spanish. The reciprocal translation into English is going to be each other, whereas the reflexive translation into English is going to be themselves, ourselves, or their, you guys' selves? I don't even know how to say that one. Yourselves, I guess, in the plural. For the most part, you're just going to use common sense to figure out which of these translations works best in English, each other or themselves. Most verbs, it's not going to be a hard decision. For example, saludarse. If I say nos saludamos, it doesn't make as much sense to say we're greeting ourselves as to say we're greeting each other. There are a few verbs like amarse that could go either way. Either we love ourselves or we love each other. In that case, remember you do have those extra words to add on there. Mutuamente, uno al otro, recíprocamente. Or just add a second sentence that explains kind of what you wanted to mean.